Sports rehabilitation, back, neck, and neck pain management, and what else did he do? Orthopedic medicine. So if you feel anything odd, never hesitate to ask him. I have his business cards and these bigger cards for the older people amongst us on the table here on the clipboard, and he should be here somewhere. There he is.
I'd first like to take an opportunity to thank you guys. It really means a lot to me that you're putting your trust in my advice. So that's a huge thing. Second of all, I would like to start with the fact that humans are runners. Intrinsically, oh, is that better? Yeah. Okay. Well, first I had thanked you guys for coming, and congrats for being runners, because that's huge. So I'd like to start with something, the most basic, like philosophical idea about running. Running is an intrinsic human activity. It's actually a form of human passion. If any of you have kids, grandkids, nephews, or nieces, and you ask them to go get something, or they're going to get you a toy, you'll never see them walk. You'll see them run. It's because it brings out the humanness out of our. It touches deeper than just staying in shape or trying to lose weight. It's an intrinsic part of us. Now, a little bit about my background. I'm board certified in physical med rehab and board certified in pain medicine. I trained in Chicago. I've done a half marathon, and I've done 3 shorter triathlons. And so running, I ran cross country in high school, and so running's always been a part of me. One of the things that everybody was always interested in is biomechanics of running. You know, my left leg hurts a little bit when I run on this part of the trail because it's tilted, and my right knee, it kind of tweaks on the middle part, and I'm not sure what that is. So I'd like to start by telling everybody that the human body is not symmetric. You have 3 lobes on your right lung. You have 2 on your left lung. Your heart's on the left side of your chest cavity. So it's okay to be a little bit asymmetric. It's that sharp shooting pain where you all of a sudden, it just stops you and it's just on one side. Soreness is good. That's part of healing. So my talk today is about biomechanics. I'm going to start from the bottom up. 3 major joints are involved in running. The ankle, it's known as the most inefficient joint in the human body. That's why the Blade Runner, he could run faster than some of the other people because he didn't have the ankle joint. It's intrinsically inefficient. Second joint is the knee. It's the largest joint in the entire human body and the most stable if kept in proper alignment. And the last is the hip. The hip is one of those enigmas of orthopedic surgery where it usually just degenerates over time, but we really don't get many, meniscal tear of the hip or labral tear of the hip. It's minimal. Hip is a stable joint because it's a socket joint. The next, the forces of every time you take a step, every time you run, the force goes through your heel and translates up into your body. It translates through joints, ligaments, tendons, and muscles. The people that don't have running injuries are the ones that have very strong and good myofascial and muscular balance. What does that mean? Well, you're making, the muscles are there for 2 reasons. One reason is to actually propel you, to fight you and push you against gravity and push you forward. The second reason is the muscles are there to give you a sensory feedback that, hey, the ground is there, okay, relax the quad, fire the hamstring, or fire the hamstring, relax the quad. Push off with the gastrocnemius, okay, the heel's about to strike. So these are some of the simple biomechanics of running. What I want you guys to keep in mind, number 1, the fact that you guys have made it 5 weeks is huge, and I'm sure that you guys have noticed improvement in your running status already. The reason is it takes 2 weeks for muscles to actually change morphology. So you can work out every day for 2 weeks straight and you won't really see a sizable difference until at week 2. The second thing, it's called Wolff's Law. Orthopedic surgeons and biomechanics specialists love this law. Basically, it relates to the remodeling of bone. Bone remodels based, Wolff's Law, he was a brilliant physician, scientist, and he found out that the bones remodel based on stresses. So as you run, you'll actually start developing bone in areas that have greater impact. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Now let's talk a little bit about knee injuries, biomechanics, and running. This is probably like a 3.5 hour lecture. I know you guys want to get to running, so we'll keep it really short. The first thing to keep in mind, running is a whole body activity. It involves everything from your neck down to your shoulders, cross through your spine, your hips, your SI joint, your knees, and your ankles. That's why a lot of times when you see very high-speed sprinters, you'll see huge upper bodies because they actually pump and torque their entire body through their pelvis for the running activity. Today, I don't want to I don't want to try to give you guys too much information at once, but one thing I want all of you guys to focus on is the importance of your core during your run today. So when you're out there running, focus on whether your abdomen is tight, whether your serratus anterior, your transverse abdominis, your rectus abdominis, all these muscles are actively firing, and you'll feel a difference. You'll feel different. You'll feel more connected to the ground. And what that does is it gives a better connection between every time you pump your arm and translates through your body and pushes the energy that you're generating in your arm through your leg into the ground and pushes you forward. At the end of the day, this is just a battle against gravity. Gravity always wins, but we can do whatever we can while we're here. I have a couple minutes left over. Is that right, Yuka?
Yes.
Okay, so I can just take a couple questions, or if anybody has any topic they want me to elaborate on, be more than happy.
Plantar fasciitis.
Okay, plantar fasciitis. What exactly is plantar fasciitis? I actually read an article last night about it, and it's funny that you asked that. So, more and more studies are showing that plantar fasciitis is not actually inflammation of the plantar fascia. It's actually degeneration of the ligament. The plantar fascial ligament is actually a fibrocartilaginous structure. Everybody knows what cartilage is. It's the soft, fluffy stuff inside your knee and your hip and your shoulder that lets things move smoothly without catching or clicking. Now, the plantar fascia is a form of cartilage, but it's fibrocartilage. What happens when you degenerate or overuse it? It actually has been shown to have microfissures and degeneration. There's a lot of treatments that we can do for that. One of them is a stem cell-based PRP treatment. Another one is called 10x tenotomy procedure, where we can actually go in and remove that defective tissue. There's two schools of thought. One school of thought is just hit it with steroids every 3 months, and then it should potentially resolve spontaneously. The other school of thought is actually take out the degenerative tissue and repair it with allograft or PRP. Does that answer your question?
It does, but I go with option 3, rest.
Rest. Well, yeah, and that rest is a fantastic thing. The rice, it works great, but it also takes you out of training. It also usually has a high relapse rate. So if you rest and you let your body heal it, what are you doing to change your biomechanics to prevent future injury? And that's kind of where that's my philosophy of medicine and how to stay active longer. Because from the day we start walking till the day we leave this earth, I mean, movement is our greatest friend. So, any other questions?
Well, the last question, would you like to elaborate what the rice is? Sure. Because people don't know what the rice is.
Okay, so so there's a philosophy called RICE. It's called rest, ice, compress, and elevate. Basically, that is it's called RICE therapy, and it's kind of like the throw all at all musculoskeletal problems. My shoulder hurts. Okay, you should just RICE it. My ankle is plantar fasciitis, so we should just RICE it. There's actually further studies coming out that talks about stretching and the biomechanics of stretching. How in long distance runners, stretching is actually controversial, whether it should be done before or after. RICE incorporates that into rest, ice, compress, elevate, and then stretch. I appreciate you guys taking the time and listening to me.
Thank you very much. I think we're all ready to run now. If y'all want to meet us for dinner after, we're going to Jill Frost on Washington.